Hey everybody, how's it going? I am your hostess Peyton from the Mysteries of Insanity podcast, and welcome to today's episode. So, before we get started, I would like to mention that Harley Warren Morris has still yet been found from January 21st. They are still looking for him. His family is still pretty distraught about it, obviously, and they are doing everything in their power to get their son home. So do please share and just talk about him, get his name out there so we can try and get him home. Also, I would like to apologize in advance for delayed posts or anything. I am 9 months pregnant and I'm trying to get everything ready for my little baby boy before he comes. So again, I do want to apologize. But for today's episode, I am doing more of a light-hearted episode just because I do need a break for a little bit from the gruesome cases and whatnot. So today's case is going to be about 6-year-old Haley Zega. April 29th, 2001, 6-year-old Haley and her grandparents went on a hike at the Ozark National Forest, which, if you didn't know, Ozark National Forest is located in Arkansas, and it is one of the biggest forests that are there. I do believe I read that it was one of the top 3 largest forests. It is 1.2 million acres. So yeah, big ass freaking forest, if anyone didn't know. So while the 3 were hiking, they reached Whitaker Point. And at that moment, Haley heard the waterfalls, and that's really the whole reason why she went, was just to see the waterfalls. So she begged her grandparents to take her closer to it, but after taking a quick glimpse, the grandparents said no because it was too far and they were already getting exhausted. So Haley, being a 6-year-old and stubborn, she sat down on, I'm not sure if it was like a rock or if it was like a log. Didn't really find anything that said that. But she sat down and told them that she wasn't moving until they took her to see that waterfall. Well, her grandparents said no, and they called her bluff, and they started walking away down the trail, which they turned back a few minutes later just in case she got up and was trying to follow them. Whatever, if she was still sitting there. But by the time that her grandparents came back to where Haley had sat down, she was gone. So Haley had taken another trail in which she thought would have been curved around and would lead into the trail that her grandparents were on. But unfortunately, that was not the case, and she was traveling farther and farther into this 1.2 million acre forest. And this is whenever the 52-hour nightmare had begun. So just to add a little bit of backstory to this, Haley's mom, her name is Kelly Sire, I think is how you say it. So sorry if I butchered that. Had let her parents watch Haley so that she could go have a day by herself because it was one of her only days off. She was always with her, so being a mom, you gotta have your days off. So she went to a film festival in, I think it's Fayette, Arkansas, and soon it became a nightmare for her. On the intercom, Kelly said that she was told to come to the back room. Sorry if you can hear my dog, that's what that sound is. She was told to come to a back room and that her grandparents had called 2 of her friends because they tried to get a hold of her. Apparently she wasn't answering, something like that. And her 2 friends had told her that Haley was missing. And unfortunately, Kelly was 2 hours away, so she rushed home as fast as she could with her 2 friends. She grabbed clothes for herself and Haley just in case, and Haley's pillowcase for the cadaver dogs. Pretty much describing anything that would aid a search to look for her. Kelly knew that there was a trail called Bluff Line, I think is what it was called, or it's just Bluff, that led to a few hundred feet drop, and Kelly was really scared that Haley was going to fall into it. Surprisingly, Haley was uninjured, but she did find herself going down the bluff. She made her way to the Buffalo River with Alicia, who was guiding her. Soon before Haley knew it, the sun was starting to set, and her little 6-year-old self needed to find somewhere to rest and go to sleep. She went and found a rock to sleep on that night, and I guess it was like in more of like the covered area of the forest, like under the trees. And whenever she found that rock the next morning, search rescue teams and everything were sent out, which were including cadaver dogs, helicopters, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and Colleen Nick, who is the founder of the Morgan Nick Foundation, which, if you don't know what that means, Morgan Nick Foundation, she lost her daughter, and so she made clearly a foundation to help children who were missing and whatnot. So one of the helicopters actually flew over Haley while she was in the forest, and Haley, being a very brave little 6-year-old, swam into the middle of that river because there was a big old rock out there and it was in the open. She swam out there and she sat on the rock trying to catch their attention, but unfortunately she did not, she wasn't seen. So next thing Haley knew, while walking around for hours trying to figure out how to get out, it was nightfall for the second time. Her mom used to talk to her about how the sky would look before it would rain, and Haley noticed that the sky looked how her mom described it, and she knew it was going to rain, so she took shelter in a cave. You know, she's 6 years old. She doesn't think of all of the bad things that could happen or the things that hide in caves. No, she's just trying to find somewhere to pretty much stay warm and not be wet. So she took shelter in a little tiny cave. This night, the temperature had dropped down to 40 degrees, and Kelly was in a cabin that Haley kind of knew of, just in case she found it, but that's just where Kelly stayed. It was in the forest, and she was sitting there waiting. Before Kelly knew, May 1st rolled around, so that was 3 days after, I think. Well, 2.5 days. Sorry, I had to do math. And little Haley was still not found. They had the largest search and rescue group in Arkansas history with over 1,000 volunteers. So at this point, like I said, it had been 2 days, 2.5 days, and they began to think that Haley was abducted since there wasn't any trace of her. They did say that at one point, the cadaver dogs, they sniffed out that pillowcase that the mom brought. And at one point, sniffed it out, and it brought them to the road. And then that's where the scent was lost. And that's why they thought that she was abducted, because her scent was lost at the road. Anyway, but a little bit beforehand, 2 men named William, sorry if I butchered this, but Villaines, I don't know, and Lyle James lived in the area and knew places in the forest that most people don't know of. They suggested it to the search and rescue team of some places that little Haley could have went to, but weirdly enough, they kind of just brushed off what William and Lyle told them, which is pretty messed up, because you'd think that they'd be taking any sort of advice or tips or anything from anyone, but apparently they didn't find that useful. But again, they ignored the information. William and Lyle then just decided to say, okay, well, if you're not going to look, we'll go look. They set out on 2 mules and went and searched for Haley themselves. A few hours passed by and they were trailing down the valley, and to their surprise, poor little Haley was curled up in a ball on the bank of the Buffalo River, and Haley said that she had never been more happy to see people than at that time. She said that she'd been so alone for so long that she didn't even care that it was just two grown men. She was just happy to see someone. Once William and Lyle had found her, they offered her a chocolate pudding and a Diet Coke. And Haley began to say, whenever she tells her story, she freaking hates Diet Coke. But on that day, when she drank it, she said it tasted like heaven. And that is funny. A few hours after traveling on the mules, they finally made it back to the road and was able to contact the crew and get an ambulance. And this is where I was just saying that the cadaver dogs found the scent of Haley and it went to the road and then it was just gone. So that's where this connects. And they found a place and they got to call an ambulance, told them where they were, and soon after, the ambulance was there and they were jumping into action, checking Haley, making sure she was okay, checking all of her vitals and everything. But poor Haley didn't look so good due to her dehydration and exhaustion, which, remember, she was out there for 52 hours by herself, no food, no water, no shelter. She was just surviving on her own. So, at the cabin where Kelly was, she saw Steve Whitmell, who was a former Washington county sheriff, and he pulled down the driveway of where the cabin was. He got out of the car with this serious face, and Kelly started to feel very anxious and distraught, thinking that he was going to break some bad news to her. And then suddenly Whitmell said, "There's a little girl who would love to see her mommy." Kelly had immediately ran back inside, grabbed Haley's favorite blanket, and got into the sheriff's vehicle, and they went to Haley at that ambulance. Kelly said that once they opened the door, she pretty much climbed like on top of the gurney, like hovering over Haley. And Haley said nothing, and she just looked so exhausted and so tired, but she could tell that Haley was also so happy to see her mom. So 52 hours later, Haley was finally safe and unharmed with her family, and she was 6 years old and survived all on her own, which is fucking incredible because I wouldn't even say, even now, okay, I'm almost 21 years old. I don't even think I could do what she did. I'd be lost forever. Like, I wouldn't even know what to do. So, props to her. She did so fucking good for a 6-year-old. And Haley is now 27, and she says that she isn't traumatized by what happened at all. Like, she doesn't even mind telling the story. I actually seen a little clip of her talking about it, and she said that her friends get annoyed sometimes by like how much people tell her to tell her story because they know that she's not going to be like, no, I don't feel like telling it. She like tells it because she likes to share that story. It's a unique one. Like, how many 6-year-olds do you know get lost in a friggin' big ass forest and survive? So, do you remember the little girl I said close to the beginning of the episode, Alicia? Well, Haley says that Alicia was there with her the whole entire time, just this other little girl. But she wasn't, how do I say this? I would say she isn't real. Haley had actually said in an interview that it was almost like Alicia was her imaginary friend. She didn't have any imaginary friends like before this happened, nor after. It was only during her being lost, Alicia came and helped her. She kept her calm while Haley was alone. So it was like her little angel or something. She said she wasn't scared and that she was never hurt. I wouldn't say that she said that she felt safe the whole time, but she didn't have bad feelings about her not being able to make it out either. So, there also were some theories that kind of like roamed around that some say that it was like a guardian angel sent to her to help her find her way out and just to, again, remain calm. And others say it was a ghost of another little girl who got lost in those woods and died. And she was just there to help her get out. And I also did read one, which is very weird. I mean, if you believe in this, that's okay, because I sometimes do too. It all just depends on the aspect of it. But some people were even talking about an alien. Okay? Someone said that it was like an alien that came and shapeshifted into a little girl and decided to help her get out, which was pretty new to me, but yeah, those were just some of the theories that some people were saying. But I would love to know what you guys think of that, because I think that last one's a little far-fetched, but the other ones seem kind of reasonable. So, I'm going to quit talking, and this is the amazing story of Haley Zega. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mysteries of Insanity, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it was a lot more lighthearted than the rest. It had a good ending. She was a remarkable little girl. She had great instincts. Again, I say, I'm so sorry for my dog in the background. He is digging through his toy box. So... leave a like or a rating on whatever platform you are listening on. And as always, I hope you have a lovely, today is Saturday, so have a lovely Saturday. And I hope to see you guys in my next episode. Bye.